and all protocol observed. Thank you so much for inviting me here to speak at the SIPA Awards ceremony. If you can show my next slide. I wanted to start my talk by talking about N'Golo Kante. He's a midfielder in the French soccer team, the football team that just won the World Cup. He's 5'6", which means he's not the biggest guy on the field. But every team he's on feels his presence. He has been described as a man with 15 lungs. The teams that he's played on see him as somebody who adds 2 people to the team because he runs a lot. He started in a very humble place, the 8th division of the French football league. Then he moved to the 3rd division, the 2nd, then to the 1st division, moved to the Premier League to Leicester, and while he was on that team, they became the league champions in the Premier League, and then on to the Champions League and then the World Cup. So at the awards ceremony, after they won the World Cup, his team created this song for him, and the whole stadium sang with him. N'Golo Kante, he's little, he's sweet, he stopped Leo Messi. N'Golo Kante, he's little, he's sweet, he stopped Leo Messi. So this is the story of many social innovators. We're little, and we're sweet, and we stop big problems. We are the people who take on some of the most difficult problems that nobody else is tackling. And they're not tackling them because they're too difficult, because there are no clear answers, because it's not flashy enough, it's too complicated, too risky, because there's no money to be made, right? So we work quietly, and we affect the lives of many people, of many millions of people, social entrepreneurs. I just want to say that over the next 30 years, we're going to run faster than before. We're going to have to run faster than we've ever done before. Why? Next slide, please. So Africa is growing very fast. Next slide. By 2030, 1 out of every 5 people on Earth will be African. And by 2050, our population is going to double from 1.2 billion today, next slide, to 2.5 billion. By the end of the century, next, the population is going to stand at 4 billion. But let's not talk about the 4 billion. Let's just talk about the 2.5 billion. That's double what our current population is. So imagine every city on the continent with twice the population of what it is today. Imagine Lagos this morning with twice the number of people. It's going to happen. For the young social entrepreneurs here, it's definitely going to happen in your lifetimes. For people like me who are just early 50s, I may be gone before it happens. But 30 years is not a very long time. And so this kind of growth is going to stress everything. There's going to be a lot of pressure on infrastructure. There's going to be a lot of pressure on food security. There's going to be a lot of pressure in making enough jobs available for more than 1 billion people coming. It's going to stress everything. And so the social entrepreneurs on this continent are going to have 15 lungs. We're going to have to run like N'Golo Kante. This is what lies before us. For me personally, I also look at that graph, these projections based on projected growth rates, fertility rates on the continent. And I think it is also an opportunity. All these people coming will have to be fed and clothed and sheltered. They'll all need to have jobs. They'll all need to be entertained. And in there lies opportunity for entrepreneurs. But that opportunity will be realized not just as a matter of course. It'll be realized if we have a productive workforce and if we have ethical and effective leadership on the continent. If we don't have the right leadership who will blaze the path, who will make sure that public monies are used for the public good, who will make sure that important systems are designed and built today in anticipation of this growth, and who will manage the economy properly, then this growth is going to actually represent a problem for the continent. So imagine 1 billion more people if they can't find good jobs, what that will mean. And consider the fact that climate change, even without population growth, climate change is going to stress our agricultural systems. It's going to stress access to water. So there's a lot of work to do, and we're going to all have to run as fast as N'Golo Kante. And we're going to have to run efficiently. Now, developing these productive citizens and the ethical leaders that we need, that is the business of education. That's a business that I'm in. Next slide. I run Ashesi University. It's 16 years old. It started when I was 37 years old. And it took me 2 years. I started actually working on the project at age 35, and we enrolled our first students when I was 37. Next slide. We started small. That's the building we started in. A very modest building in a residential neighborhood in Accra. And we started with 30 students. I used to say to myself, well, you know, Harvard started with 4 students, so we're doing really well, and it's all going to be okay. Microsoft started with 2 people. Amazon started with about 2 people. And often, great things start small. Actually, all biological things, all human-made things start small. But you have to have this forward-looking vision of where you want to go, and you have to be very determined to take the necessary steps to get there and to not be discouraged. Next slide. And so now we're on a purpose-built campus. We've graduated 1,200 students over the years. We have 1,000 students enrolled at the moment. And we have plans to keep growing to make a big impact. This year, 96% of our graduating class received job offers or graduate school offers or started their own business within 6 months of graduating. Actually, I should say within 6 months of finishing national service. And every year, 100% of our graduates will find a job. But within 6 months, it's sort of been between 93% and 100% getting placed. How have we done this? We've done this by being very systematic and very methodical about how we're functioning. 50% of our students receive scholarships to come to the institution. So 50% are paying their way, 50% are subsidized. About a quarter are fully subsidized, so they pay nothing to come. And we offer scholarships to the bottom 2 quintiles in Africa. When we started in our first year, we only offered scholarships to Ghanaian citizens, to Sierra Leoneans, and Liberian citizens. Today, the scholarship program is open to all citizens of African countries, wherever they may be. And so we have students from Nigeria, from Kenya, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, the Gambia, DRC, Burundi, Sudan, Lesotho. And many of these students get scholarships to come because we believe that our campus must reflect the society that we're operating in. And so we want diversity in terms of gender, we want diversity in terms of social economic status. 46% of our students are women. 40% of our engineering students are women, which is the highest probably on the continent. And most importantly, 90% of our graduates are staying and working in Africa, affecting the lives of millions of people. The thing that I'm most proud of, though, is that I believe that we have created a model that other institutions can now replicate. And that through our work, we're really raising the bar for higher education, certainly in Ghana, but across the continent about what we can achieve. So let me talk a little bit about what we've achieved. Next slide. Next slide. One of the things that we set as a goal from our very first day was that we were going to educate ethical leaders. And there were people who wondered how on earth we were going to achieve this. Our answer was that we were going to build ethics into the curriculum, that we were going to model ethical behavior, and most importantly, that we were going to challenge our students to think about what kind of good society they want to see in the world, in Africa, in Ghana, and on their own campus. And so today, at Ashesi University, we do not invigilate exams. Faculty go into the classrooms for exams. They give the questions to students. They administer the exam. They answer any questions the students have. And then they leave the classroom. And the students are on their own. And we've essentially given them the power to do one of two things. On the one hand, they can achieve excellence. On the other hand, they could destroy their alma mater if they decide to take that opportunity to cheat. But what they decided was to achieve excellence. And so they have an honor system voted into force by the student body to say that they will not cheat, they will not tolerate those who cheat, and that we don't need to invigilate their exams. I should say that every year, some students do in fact cheat on exams, and every year, their colleagues hold them accountable, and they come before a judicial committee that includes students, faculty, administration, and the executive, and are sanctioned. These are the leaders that you can give the keys to the central bank to. These are the leaders that you can trust with designing and building important infrastructure and providing services for their society. Because not only are they getting the practice of living an ethical life themselves individually, but they're also getting the practice of holding each other accountable corporately. And there will always be people who do the wrong thing. But it is really important that when those few people do the wrong thing, that the majority will hold them accountable so that it does not escalate. And that is what is happening on our campus today. We have students, alumni, next slide, who have started businesses, important businesses in our country. 1 out of every 25 graduates will start a business right out of college. And our goal is to get to a point where 1 out of every 5 starts a college within 10 years of graduating. So we expect that a lot of our graduates will go work somewhere else first, get experience, build networks, raise some money themselves before they go start their businesses. But they're doing some really phenomenal things. We had a student who got very engaged in his home country of Liberia in deploying technology that enabled his country to track the spread of Ebola when the crisis hit in 2014. And before that system was deployed, it took weeks for the Liberian government to register a suspected Ebola case. After the system was deployed, within a day of an event happening, it was known in the system. The medical system knew where to go and where to give treatment. Because of somebody's work out of Ghana, he was sitting on our campus working on an IT system that enabled this. We've had alumni who have, next slide, who have developed and deployed technology that has enabled voter registration to be a lot more transparent, to be a lot more secure, and are affecting democracies across the continent, starting with Ghana, with biometric registration, so that people can't register more than once to vote, and that when they vote once, that's it. They can't go vote again somewhere else. And we have alumni who have deployed technology that's enabling small businesses to thrive, to have access to financial markets, and so on. These are really important things that are happening. Next slide. And it all started with an idea. It started with an idea that a small group of individuals could get engaged with changing the way education is done in Ghana and on the continent. And then that idea, I would say, became what I used to call Patrick and a big echo. It was just me yelling, and then I would hear the echo back. And then it became a small team of people working together to actually bring this idea to reality. And then it became a small institution. Suddenly it was real. It was on the ground. We had students. We had the first parent who paid school fees and wrote a check. I really wanted to frame that check and hang it in my office, but we needed the cash, right? So I cashed the check. And I didn't even think to take a photocopy of it before I did that. But it's really something to go from an idea to reality, to seeing alumni who are running schools, who are affecting democracy in our country, who are building important systems that are enabling better healthcare, better financial services, who are involved with agriculture and a lot of different areas. The challenge for us moving forward is going to be, how do we scale up our impact? How do we present to the world the way that N'Golo Kante does on a football pitch? He's everywhere. he runs so hard and he's so persistent. How do we do that? My answer is that we do that through collaborating with others. That we need to connect with other institutions of learning. We need to connect with other social entrepreneurs. We need to support each other. And by doing that, Ashesi will get stronger, Ashesi will get better, and so will the other institutions. And my challenge to you as social innovators, and young social innovators at that, is that as you proceed with your life's work, think about what it takes if you were to want to go to climb Mount Everest. You would train yourself for the task at hand, and actually before you did that, you'd probably find a buddy, a friend, or multiple buddies who would join you on the journey, who would train with you. You'd read up about the mountain. You'd eventually travel to the base of the mountain and find a Sherpa to guide you up. And then you would go one step at a time until you get to the peak. And when the storms come, you know to shelter in your tent. And when it's clear, to come back out of your tent and keep going. It's going to be the same with your journey. You need to find a buddy, find a co-founder. You need to find a Sherpa, a mentor who can guide you on your way. But most importantly, you need to train yourself, both your body and your mind, to be physically and intellectually and mentally fit for the task at hand. And then you need to celebrate. You need to make sure you stop and celebrate along your journey as you reach various milestones. So I'd like to leave you with just that thought, that the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. But the journey of 1,000 miles does not end with one step. You have to take the second step and the third step and the 500th step and then 859th step and so on until you get to the 1,000 steps. And remember that that's what it's going to take. Set milestones along your way, and when you achieve those milestones, remember to stop and celebrate with your team, because that's how you re-energize yourself the rest of your journey. Thank you very much.